Hi, and welcome to another ICS Impulse video. I'm Wendy Crumley-Welsh, the Product Manager for ICS Impulse, and today we're going to be talking about reporting. So first thing we're going to talk about is editing the report. This is the tab that allows us to create what we want to say about the report, the symptoms of the patient, our overall diagnosis, and also the test results of the report. And we're going to show this when we go to the software. The second section is report options, review report options. So here it's going to show us the test date and time and what is included in that test session, the various individual tests that we can include on a report, and then the report options for the ocular, motor, head impulse, and positional tests. First, let's talk about the review report options and selected report. So as soon as you do your test, a report is created for you and saved, and you can edit that report. So up here it gives you the report date and time, and then you see these three little icons, and these icons should look familiar to you because they're also in the patient list. So the icon of the little man sitting in the chair looking at a dot, that is for ocular motor testing. The head impulse test, obviously it's a head impulse with a saccade, that's for the head impulse testing. And then the man on the table with his head hanging over, i.e. a Dix Hallpike or Hallpike stinger, that is the positional testing. So you will have a checkbox below in the column telling you what type of tests are saved in that test report or that test session. The next thing in review report options down here is there are three tabs now: ocular motor, head impulse, and positional. So here in ocular motor you will have the test date and time as well as the test type, whether it was gaze, spontaneous, visual VOR, VOR suppression, skew deviation, whether this was done horizontal, vertical, or for gaze, up, down, left, right, center. You will have that information. You will also see in the ocular motor that, and we're going to skip over here to positional, but you'll also see in the ocular motor whether those tests were done with the vision denied or not, and then we'll come back to those last two things. So under the head impulse tab, same thing, test date and time, and then it'll tell you which was lateral, LARP, or RALP. And then under positional, test date and time, and then again what type of positional or treatment or test was done. So Dix Hallpike, head left; Dix Hallpike, head right; Hallpike stinger, head straight, roll. If you performed a CRT, leftward, rightward, etc. Now we just talked about vision denied, so if you want to learn more about vision denied, you need to watch the vision denied video. This next thing here would be if you had marked in the record that this was unique for some reason, whether it was unique because you wanted to use this as a research patient for a publication, or it was unique because this was a very unusual case. If you had marked that as a unique test, then that little asterisk will show up here. And then any remarks you typed in during analysis will also show up here. So that information that is called out at the top here is what you see in this middle block. Now the bottom block, let's go back here, see this bottom block down here? This decides what elements you can put in to your report. So the elements for ocular motor are the calibration graph. You want to see the horizontal or the vertical traces. You want to know the peak SPV for SPV tests such as spontaneous or gaze, and then any test remarks. The elements for impulse, which you should be familiar with if you've had impulse before: calibration graph, gain graph, the means on the gain, the large 2D gain graph, the small 2D gain graph. What's new is saccade info, so that's your overt covert count. And then the age normative data, if you want those age normative data blocks on your report, you can put those on there. The hex plot, progress data if you want to compare multiple test sessions, test info, and then test info would be the collection analysis information, the frame rate, etc., and then test remarks. And then lastly, positional. Your calibration graph, if you want to include that, horizontal, vertical traces, peak SPV. If you did a full, for example, canalith repositioning treatment, and you want that whole trace to be printed out, then you can check full trace for repositioning, and then test remarks. So again, to reiterate about the reports, there's still vector-based graphics, and this is great because you need vector-based graphics. They're the quality that you need for publications. So if you're publishing your data, then you've got the vector-based graphics. It saves multiple reports on the same patient. You can combine data from tests as well as multiple test sessions into one report. Under review report options, the clinician selects the data from a particular test or a particular test session to be included in that report. If you just did one test session, for example, you just did lateral LARP and RALP on this patient today, and that's all you want to print, then there's one-page reporting. So you can fit all that on one page. You can print, you can create a PDF, or you can email the report. There's lots of customization for the report. So the report narrative allows the clinician to store their most frequently used symptoms, impressions, and macros, but obviously we give you some to start in with, and we're going to show you that. And then customization makes reporting quick and efficient. So you can put in your facility information, your facility logo, you can choose what patient demographics you want to include on your report, choose the main title of the report and test section titles, and choose the elements for that report. So I'm going to show you some of this customization stuff in the PowerPoint, but then we're also going to go into the software and show you how this works. So if you go down to options in the navigation panel down here, and you go to either test options or report options, if you go to report options, the report options tab will open up. But you have this other tab called facility info, and that facility info will allow you to put in all your facility information as well as your facility logo. The report options allows you to decide what patient information is going to be on the report, what facility information is going to be on the report, what operator, is it the person who collected the data or the person who's printing the report, or do you want both of those names if they're different on the report. If you're in an EU country or a country where the postal code comes before the city on the address, that box will allow you to do that. If you're printing to a black and white printer, you want the unique gain graph symbols so that the blue and red gain dots are easily recognizable for head impulse testing. You want to choose what type of paper size you're using. And then right here, this is new. This is where you determine your report titles. So the main title is the title on the cover page. So it says vestibular assessment report or whatever you want to put as your overall title. And then for your ocular motor test, for your head impulse test, and for your positional test, you can also determine what you want to call those sections. So let's go into software and let's show you how these reports work. There we go. So first thing on the edit report page, so we go to symptoms. If you want to change what the symptoms are, you just click on symptoms and you can come over here, you can change a word, you can reorder them, you can add a whole new symptom. The other thing to know is that when we release new modules or new features or new tests, we often add in new impressions and macros. The symptoms usually stay the same because obviously the patient comes in with a certain set of symptoms. But if you had edited that list and you decided that you want to incorporate the new stuff that we released, you can have the option of keep existing list. So you check that and then you import our new stuff and it keeps our new stuff with your existing stuff. Or if you just want to replace, you haven't made any edits and you want to replace our old stuff with our new stuff, then you say remove existing. So you do have a couple of options when importing. The other thing to know is that these can be imported in different languages. So currently we have English, Spanish, French, Italian, German, Swedish, Japanese, and Chinese. And I'm sure there'll be more to come in the future. But those are the language that the software is currently in, and so you can import those symptoms in those languages. When you check a symptom, it'll show up over here in the report. It says symptoms, and then it says what it is. So notice that now, if you had an older version of software, when I check a symptom, I don't have to hit refresh or update or anything. It automatically just puts it in there for me. So now, what's different between any version before 3.0 and 3.0 on is the impressions. So previously, the impressions were very similar to the macros. Now what the impressions are is your overall diagnosis of this patient. So this patient results are consistent with a peripheral vestibular disorder or peripheral vestibular lesion on the left side. So that's your overall diagnosis based on all the testing that you did on this patient. The macros, however, are per test results. So for gaze, what was the gaze results? Well, all the gaze was normal. So gaze nystagmus was not present. Or gaze nystagmus was present for leftward gaze. So those give you results for each one of the tests. So then you have spontaneous nystagmus now. You've got vestibular ocular reflex. That's for visual vestibular ocular reflex as well as vestibular ocular reflex suppression. You've got skew deviation, head impulse, and then dynamic positional as well as repositioning. So lots and lots of macros. You just click a macro, insert it, and see it says findings. Let's click a couple impression up here so you can have an impression. So you say symptoms. These are what the patient was feeling when they came in, what they reported. The impressions, this is my overall result. Test results indicated normal vestibular function. And then my findings for each one of my tests. So if I had multiple findings, let's say I did spontaneous also, and I did my VOR test, and that's going to go on and on. So my gaze nystagmus was not present, spontaneous nystagmus was not present, and both visual VOR and VOR suppression tests were within normal limits. And you can keep adding to that. And again, you can determine what this title is, all the facility information. If you wanted that in there, you add it in, the patient information. It gives you the report date, the operator, etc. And then now I've got the title of my first section of data collection. So these are my ocular motor tests. It tells me the test date and time, who tested that patient, so the test operator, and then you've got a legend. So in this example, this is a visual VOR. So the orange is the head, the green is the eye, and this is a normal response. If I kind of scroll down here, this is skew deviation, test date and time, default operator, or test operator was, we didn't log anybody in, so it's just the default operator. It gives me the average horizontal eye position shift here, and then shows me the trace. This is a normal result. And then the little eyes, this is when I covered, uncovered, covered, uncovered. Okay? And you can keep scrolling through the test. But let's go over to review report options. So again, test date and time and checkbox of whether there's positional head impulse or ocular motor tests collected. The tabs, ocular motor, head impulse, and positional, and then I can choose what I want to include. So if you're making just a small change, like the symptoms, impressions, macros, when you do that, it's going to automatically update the report. But if the change includes graphic changes, like you're adding a whole new test, or you're adding vertical traces when you used to only have horizontal up on your report, or you're changing something in the gain graph for head impulse. When you change those kind of things, then you need to click the refresh button to update your report. So if I was to take the vertical traces off here, let's do that, or actually let's go to an ocular motor so this will make more sense. Let's say I want to take the skew deviation off. See, I checked it, but it's still on my report. I need to hit refresh for it to go away. So now if you look at the report, the skew deviation is no longer there. We're going to make this a little bigger so you can see. Okay, so if it's a graphical change where you're adding or taking away something, you need to click the refresh button in order to update your report. If it's simple text, it typically will just auto update for you. Okay, again, these options down here will change when I change these tabs. Okay, so that allows me to choose which elements I want to include in my report. And then last thing, the ability to print. It will auto save, but you can click save if you make changes. PDF, print a PDF, and then email. This changes the view, so if I want to make something bigger or smaller, this button here basically fits the width. This will fit the document to the height, and then this will make it 100%, which I guess I'm at right now. There we go. So, and then that refresh button again if you're making graphical changes. So that's pretty much it. What's really nice is now you can print all of your test data in one combined report. You can choose. It's very flexible, easy to use, and the flexibility allows you to meet your facility's needs.